Hi everyone, thanks for stopping by our Splash Talk. I'm Naira, a first-year PhD student in pharmacology at Weill Cornell Medicine, and the co-founder of Politics Under the Microscope, a science policy podcast. Most STEM graduate students are faced with the choice of entering academia or industry upon earning their degree. However, many scientists like us were driven into public policy because of the mismanagement of the pandemic, but we were unsure where to start when it came to using policy knowledge to make an impact. Serendipitously, I came across an opportunity to receive funding to start a science policy-based podcast and sent out a Slack message for collaboration in the Tri-Institutional Science and Education Policy Association network. It was then that I met 3 other members of my team, and our podcast, Politics Under the Microscope, was born. We understood that it was our role to leverage our collective scientific backgrounds and policy interests to make credible, nuanced content about the management of the COVID-19 pandemic and the vaccine. We started by contacting governor-appointed members responsible for managing the distribution of the vaccine and advising officials regarding its clinical efficacy. We spoke with Dr. Garcia Sastre, a member of the New York Clinical Advisory Task Force and expert in RNA vaccines and viruses, and we addressed concerns about vaccine development and safety. We then interviewed Reverend Diane Holtz, a member of the Vaccine Distribution Task Force and founder of Durham's Maternal Stress-Free Zone, which supports individuals in family planning. Reverend Holt taught us how she is building back trust in science from the African American community. She did this by relaying information from scientific experts, sharing her vaccination story, and leading by example. She encouraged many members of her community to get vaccinated. We then explored a macroscopic view of the pandemic by addressing questions about its management through the CARES Act and the role of scientific expertise in shaping the decisions of politicians. So we interviewed Congressman Seth Moulton, a Democrat from Massachusetts, and Congresswoman Chrissy Houlihan, a Democrat from Pennsylvania. We believe that the scientific community can learn the following from our work. First, if you want to make an impact beyond your work at the bench, you have to understand the accessibility to the right stakeholders outside the bench. For example, in the episode about vaccine distribution, Reverend Holt highlights that although the vaccine was created in record time, it wasn't accessible to many communities due to sociological barriers rooted in the traumatic history the African American community had with scientists and healthcare professionals. Furthermore, Padam Podcast is currently exploring how inaccessible the vaccine and COVID-19 related information was and still is to the deaf and hard of hearing communities. Second, you have to make outreach a priority to improve the accessibility to your work. You can do this by growing a network of nonprofit organizations addressing societal issues related to your science. As an emerging or established expert in your field, you can serve as an educator, advisory board member, or volunteer to drive forward initiatives related to your bench work. At Padam, we worked with Hypothekids, a nonprofit organization providing scientific education and research opportunities to underserved high school students in New York City. And we ultimately educated them about vaccine hesitancy and employed our podcast series as an educational tool. To wrap up, the initiative of our public engagement work is to demonstrate how science can be used to advance equity and inclusion and highlight how scientific advancements may not be an object of equal access in society. Thanks so much for listening.